Everyone on YouTube tells you what the benefits of being a developer are. But what they're not telling you is what they do on a regular basis. Instead, they show you around their fancy office, they show you their fancy apartment, but they never really tell you what they do while they're sitting at the computer for 6 hours a day. All right, so your time as a developer can be really broken down into 4 different segments. And the first 3 are pretty typical. And the 4th one is something that I didn't really think about before I became a developer, and no one really talked about it. The first 2 can be broken down into actual coding. So the first 2 are bug fixes and feature requests. Bug fixes are exactly what they sound like. The product has a bug and your job is to fix the bug. This is most common for newer developers on the team. So if there's small bugs like the button color or this drop down doesn't have a certain option, those are going to be pushed down to the newer developers to get their feet wet. Whereas more experienced developers are going to focus less on the little bugs and more on the things that require more thought and experience to be able to fix or implement. On the other end, you have the feature requests, which I think is a lot more engaging and fun because you actually get to create things. Basically, the product manager decides what feature needs to be created depending on the customer's feedback, and you're the guy to build it. Now, depending on the size of the feature, it really determines what kind of developer works on it. Most of the time, small feature requests, like adding a button to one part of the code, there's a lot of buttons. Different things like that, much easier tasks are typically handed down to newer developers. And the bigger task, that's going to be definitely left up to more experienced developers. The third one is not typical to every company, but it definitely is typical to mine, and that is customer support. And it doesn't sound as bad as you think. It's not me picking up the phone and listening to customers yell at me, nothing like that. But instead, we have customer success members who talk to the customers, and then they get the feedback, and we work directly with them to fix certain bugs, find certain bugs, help them with the direct customers' problems. And mostly because we have access to the database and we can see things from a different perspective. And finally, the one that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, which is kind of surprising, but it's code reviews. As a developer, you would think this would be talked about more, but it's not. And by code reviews, basically you get this feature request from the customer success team or your product manager, and you build it, and then it needs to be reviewed by other developers, your manager. Other people need to test it to make sure that it's free of bugs. It actually accomplishes the goal that you guys were set out to accomplish. And it's something that is kind of a team effort. So say I build a feature request and I ask 3 other developers to review it. Those are other developers that actually have to spend time reviewing my own code, right? So that means I have to be one of the developers that reviews their code. It's actually a lot more tedious than I thought it would be. And it's essentially reading code line by line and trying to understand it. The idea is to clean the code and make sure that it's not more difficult for the next developer to develop with. But as a newer developer, you don't necessarily have to spend all of your time. I would say the higher you get and the closer you get to a manager position, the more focused on reading other people's code goes up, and the less focusing on writing your new code, that amount of time goes down. So that's about it. You've got the bug fixes, the feature requests, the customer support, and the code reviews. And that pretty much makes up my day as a web developer. If this sounds interesting to you and you're interested in hearing more, definitely follow, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.